Shalom, my dear friends. The 7th day of the month of Iyar to the 3rd of May. And today we will, thank God, continue with our studies in the book of Job and in the Mishnah of Shabbat. And I find our studies tremendous comfort and great joy in my lives, and particularly when you join me for these studies so that we're able to share the words of the living Torah, the words of the living God, together and to deepen our knowledge and our understanding. So with that, my dear friends, let us turn now to our continuing study in the book of Eov, the book of Job. And let's just get some text up here corrected so as not to confuse us as we go through our studies. That will be better, hopefully. There we go. Shalom. Today, the 7th day of the month of Iyar of the year 5777, corresponding to the 3rd of May of the year 2017. And we continue now with our study of the book of Job, Sefer Eov, beginning now in chapter 25, which is a very short chapter, giving the reply of the second of the three companions that had come to comfort Job, his response to Job's answer in the last two chapters, in Job's response to Eliphaz, the first of the three companions. And in our chapter today, chapter 25, in the address of Bildad, we come to the conclusion of all of the addresses of the three companions. After Bildad's response, when Job will begin to speak in chapter 26, the three companions have nothing more to say to him. They're not able to either answer his questions or persuade him that somewhere he has done wrong. And so it's essentially from chapter 26 onwards, all the way until the end of chapter 31, we have Job successively adding dimensions to his explanation of his situation, some of the greatest flights of eloquence in the Tanakh. And we shall today, God willing, after looking at first chapter 25, the address of Bildad, then go into Job's great succession of soliloquies from chapter 26 through to chapter 31. But in order to understand the context of the reply of Bildad now in chapter 25 to Job, let us look at the way that our Meforshim explain what Bildad's intent here is in his very short address. Because Job had protested in the answer to Eliphaz of his own innocence, and that is the first of his questions, that why does the true and complete tzaddik suffer in this world, which is manifestly the case. And the second half of his response to Eliphaz was, and equally by the same token, why do the wicked appear to not suffer at all in proportion to their deeds? As the Metzudat David puts it in his summation of Job's previous addresses, he says, if you there's nobody that can contradict me and claim that those wicked people do not enjoy the very best of good, and nobody can deny my arguments, because it's something quite clear. Job had said, Job had denied the words of Eliphaz, and he's maintaining still that the truth is with him, that he followed the path of righteousness. And we shall see in the coming chapters how Job specifies the rigorous ethical code of conduct to which he held himself, and he maintains his innocence unto the end, and that is not even disputed at all, even by the later addresses of Elihu, nor by God. Nobody denies that Job was a perfect tzaddik. The question is, why, therefore, was he suffering? So this was pointed up in his response to Eliphaz when he's saying that why should God show patience to the wicked, and when he comes to destroy these wicked that destroy so many other souls, they hardly suffer at all. So not only do they have this success in their lifetimes, but they continue with this success, as it were, in their very death, because they die easily, quickly, without the pains of illness. And Job, in the interpretation of Metzudat David, had been attributing this to a blind, implacable fate that is set by the mechanisms of the galaxies, the stars, and the planets, and is governing the destinies of man. He had said it appears as if the things that happen to people are not under either the control or the providence or even of interest to the Creator. Well, now, Bildad, in his response to this, he's going to emphasize the power and the might of God and the great fear that must attach to God. And since God has the power to make peace in his high places, he unifies the attributes of kindness, of chesed, and of gevurah, of might and strength into one unity. He unifies and brings together into cooperative interaction fire and water, as we shall hear. Then since these mighty angels cannot contradict the will of God, how much more so what is happening here on earth, if it is governed by the apparatus of divine providence through the stars and the planets. Nevertheless, it's all completely under his control, and no man has either the right or the power to stand up before God and call God to account and demand justice for himself or herself, and claim that God is being unjust with them. It's just not possible because of the greatness of God. So the Metzudat David summarizes the answer of Bildad, which we shall keep in our minds as we study through these verses, summarizes it as follows. He says that Bildad is arguing that in truth, all of the apparatus of the heavenly government is completely subject to God on account of God's exaltedness, and on account of the very fear of the angels and the stars and the planets of God, of being punished. And no man is entitled to expect some repayment from God because of the great exaltedness of God, and because of the lowliness of man's insignificance in relation to the king. Even a small amount of rebellion against God on the part of a man would be considered to be a tremendous offense because of the greatness of God. So Bildad is leaving us with the suggestion that there was some element in Job that was calling out for punishment as being something that was construed as a rebellion against God. And where therefore, Bildad concludes in the summation of Metzudat David, where therefore is Job's righteousness? So let us now go to the Hebrew text of Job chapter 25, to the answer of Bildad. Vaya'an Bildad hashuchi vayomar. And answered Bildad the Shuchi, from the seed of the children of Keturah, from Abraham, vayomar, and he said, Hamshel vofahad Imoy. Hamshel, from the root of limshol, to rule, the power, or fachad, the fear, are with him. And now the very well-known phrase from our prayers, Oseh shalom bimromov. He makes peace on his high places. Hamshil v'fachad imoy. These are two contraries. The Targum has two translations on this verse. The first is the power and fear are before him. He makes place in his high heavens. There's an alternative Targum that says, Michael min yamina, the angel Michael from the right. Vehu de esha, he is of fire. V'Gavriel mismole, Gabriel is on his left. Vehu de mayo, he is of water. Uvirioso kadishoso poschin eshta umayo. The creations, his holy creations, these angels are mixing fire and water. Uveshiltonuse uvedechalte, and through his power and through his fear, Ovad Shlomo b'shmei shmayu delay. He makes peace in the heavens of the heavens of that are his. So the Midrash is immediately, the Targum is immediately introducing the idea of these two angels, so the two great forces of creation. And in the words of the Metzudat David explaining this verse, verse 2, Hamshel v'fachad imoi, the power and the fear is with him. Great is the power and abundant is the fear that are with God. And each of the two of them, these are the Hamshel, the power, and the Pachad, the fear, which would be alluding, according to Targum, to the angel Michael on the side of Chesed and the angel Gavriel on the side of Gvura. God makes peace between them. The Metzudat David continues, he makes peace with each one of them, and through them with the whole of the apparatus of the heavenly government, so that no part of it shall contradict or rise up in opposition to any other part in interacting with the lowly world. These intermediaries of God's power, namely the angels, the messengers, they will not change their appointed task. That is to say that when you, Job, in the words of Bildad, when you, Job, have said, Loma nitzpenu itim, why were the times hidden away from God, as if to say that they were not subject to his influence, the destined times through the wheels of fate, Bildad is answering him by saying that indeed the whole apparatus of heaven is subject to God, for they are humbled before him, whether it be through the awe of his exaltedness, whether it be through the fear of the punishment, as we shall see presently in the coming verses. And Rashi, in his comment on verse 2, he says that Bildad here is answering what Job had said, that he intended to, he wanted to set forth his case before God, and now Bildad is answering him, Hamshel ufachad imo, the power and the fear is with him. Hamshel ze Michael, Rashi says Hamshel, that is the angel Michael, as in our Targum. Pachad ze Gavriel, fear, terror, that is Gabriel on the side of Gevurah. You cannot answer either one of those two, neither Michael nor Gavriel, let alone God Almighty. You are unable to do this. We can recall from the book of Daniel, who was privy to the to prophecies from the angel of Gavriel, that Daniel just fell lifeless on the ground, trembling and shaken out of all his powers when the angel appeared to him. So even a vision of such angels would be completely overwhelming. Bildad is saying here in the words of Rashi, and in that beautiful verse Oseh Shalom b'Meromav, that he makes peace in his high places. Rashi brings a beautiful thing here. He says, when the constellations of the signs of the zodiac come up, one after the other, through the year, each month one of the signs is ascendant. They're all rising from the east and going from east to west in the sky. He says each of the 12 constellations, which is itself the manifestation of angelic powers, each one thinks that he is coming up first because he does not see the one that is before him. And therefore there is no jealousy between the 12 of them in this cycle. Kach shamati, so I have heard, says Rashi. And he brings a second explanation that when it says God makes peace in his high places, fire and water are mixed together, and the water does not extinguish the fire, nor vice versa. So here Rashi is alluding midrashically to the fundamental elements of creation, just as water is said to be made up of hydrogen and oxygen, which are locked together, and so with the other compounds that are made out of the elements. This is all the manifestation of God's great power. In the words of Bildad, how can Job possibly have the presumptuousness to begin to argue with God? Going on then now to verse 3, Bildad continues with evocation of the powers of creation. Hayesh mispor ligedudov ve'al mi lo yokum oirehu. Asking Job, Hayesh mispor ligedudov, is there a number to his forces, to his legions, troops and legions? Ve'al mi lo yokum oirehu, upon whom shall not stand his light. In other words, it is God's light, the emanation, the atzilut, emanation of God's light through the creation, that is feeding shefa, feeding influence to all of the angelic hosts that make up the apparatus of heavenly government. And there is no number to them that anybody could start to argue with them. And when Bildad says, upon whom does not his light stand, this is explained to mean that each and every one of the angelic forces receiving the light of God's influence, and it is compelling that angel in the direction of God's will. The angel is not able to act independently of God. That is to say that everything is under God's complete power and providence. So if so, in verse 4, Uma yitzdak enosh im eil, Uma yizke yelud isho, given these exalted heavenly beings that are under God's power and control, Uma yitzdak enosh, through what may a person be justified, a man, enosh, a lowly creature such as man, im el, with this almighty God having power over all these legions. Uma yizke yelud isha, what or how shall be found worthy one born of woman? So Bildad is expressing his perception of Job as having the effrontery to presumptuousness to think that he could possibly argue against God. And now in the following verse, Bildad brings a most interesting allusion. Hein ad yoreach velo yahil v'chochovim lo zaku ve'enov. Hein, indeed, as a logical next stage in the deduction Bildad wants us to make. Indeed, ad yoreach. Here the word ad is actually a verb. It's not the usual preposition ad, up to, until. Here it is a verb, ad yoreach. It has the meaning of that the moon went away. She passed away from what she had been. Velo ya'ahil, and she shall not shine. V'choichovim lo zaku ve'enov. V'choichovim, the planets, the larger of the Hebrew word kochavim refers to the Shiva Kochavei Lechet, the 7 stars that are in motion, the 7 planets, but may also refer to other large prominent stars in the sky. The very stars, lo zaku ve'enov, they are not clear in his eyes. We do indeed see how the moon is fluctuating in its size through the month, through its waning phase until it disappears into nothingness, before then coming back into being to the waxing phase. And likewise the stars are often twinkling through a mist, and through the consummate absolute perfection of God, all of these heavenly celestial luminaries are found wanting in the eyes of God. How much more so in the next verse? How much more so a lowly man who is nothing but worms and maggots? Before we go on to the next verse, let us look at the commentary on the very suggestive words here of Bildad, who is alluding to the mystery of the diminution of the moon. According to the Midrash of our sages, with its very profound esoteric connotations, at the beginning of creation, as it says in Genesis, on the creation of the luminaries, on the fourth day, God created the two great lights. They were created of equal magnitude, but then after it says the great light to rule by the day and the small light by the night. The sun by the day is the great light, the moon is the small light. So what happened? The moon was first to be a light equal to the sun, but later she is diminished. Rabbis put it picturesquely in the Midrash that the moon said, how can two kings rule at the same time? And the Almighty said to the moon, you are indeed correct, diminish yourself, and that way the sun will shine by the day with a full light, and you shall only receive the light of the sun. This is the mystery known as the mystery of Ibur, the mystery of literally the pregnancy of the moon, the mystery of the Hebrew calendar, which is based upon the lunar months. And this alluded to here in this verse is brought out by the commentary of Metzudat David. On verse 4, he says, Umaytzdak enoshim el, how could a person be justified for God? As if to say, if you answer that if God is so powerful, if Job will answer, if God is so powerful, why does he not control the apparatus to pay recompense to the righteous? Bildad says, well, what is man to be considered righteous before God? Surely because of the great lowliness of man and the great exaltedness of God, even the little deviation from the path of the tzaddik is considered to be a great rebellion against God, and therefore where is man's righteousness? And then on verse 5 he says, look, the moon has passed away. He says God caused the light of the moon to pass away and to be removed so that she should not radiate in the proportion to her full light that he put in her when she was created. And that is because the moon showed jealousy against the sun and said it's impossible for two kings to rule in one kingdom, as brought in the Midrash of the sages. And if this was a very small rebellion on the side, on the part of the moon, and the status of the moon in creation as one of the celestial beings is so very great, and nevertheless, the moon was considered nothing before God. He diminished the moon as a punishment, as it were, for this act of rebellion. Then, so we see that even the small deviation from God is considered to be a great rebellion against the moon, and so likewise with the stars. The stars, continues the Metzudat David, the stars are also not clear and clean in his eyes. If so, the inference, the conclusion of his argument is now in verse 6. Af ki enosh rimo. How much more so when man is a worm, or the maggot. Uven odom toleo. The son of man is a worm or a maggot. The word rima would probably be more fit for the maggots, and the toleo is the worm which eats the physical body after death. So this is Bildad's response to Eov. And Again, this is the last of the addresses of the three companions. They have nothing more to say to Job. They cannot convince him, and therefore Job now enters into his own soliloquy, beginning this series of chapters now from chapter 26 through to the end of chapter 31. And these chapters in the printed Bibles do reflect some of the parasha divisions of these coming chapters. The main theme of chapter 26 that we shall now enter is Job's evocation of the greatness of God. He says that, Bildad, you have told us things that everybody knows about anyway. I have much more to tell about the greatness of God. But in verse 27, in chapter 27, Job will again protest his innocence, and he will nevertheless affirm that he's fully aware that God does punish the wicked in the world to come. And Job says that even though he is saying that in this world there is no perceptible justice because the wicked prosper and the truly righteous suffer, Job says, nevertheless, for all of that, it is still proper to follow the way of God impeccably and to seek after the knowledge of God, which is wisdom. And with that, in chapter 28, Job enters into this most beautiful evocation of the search for the mysteries of wisdom and the eternal value of wisdom. Chapter 29 is Job's lament over his days of glory, and he enumerates how he was an honored and revered individual. And then in chapter 30, he will contrast that with his dire situation now, where he is despised by the lowliest of the low. And then in chapter 31, the final most eloquent summation of Job's address, where he is aware that he was created to be God's archetypal figure of suffering, with all of the shame and the abuse that he receives from people who are appalled by this suffering, this physical suffering, this mental suffering and anguish that he was going through, until he became a byword for the nations. And he cries out, would that a book were written to express his thoughts and his feelings. The very eloquent summation in chapter 31, before we will then come to the intervention of Elihu bar Barachel. So we now enter into chapter 26, which is Job beginning to respond to Bildad Hashuchi, and he will then go on, since nobody answers him anymore, to go through all of the ensuing sections of this great and wonderful address. Chapter 26, Chof Vov, Vaya'an Iyov Vayomar. And Job answered, and he said, Me ozarto lelo choach, hoshato zroa lo oz. Me ozarto, what have you helped? Lelo choach, to the one that has no strength. Your words are not able to avail me in my suffering. Hoshato zroa lo oz. Have you saved the arm that has no power? You have not helped me in any of what you have said, the little of you have said. Ma yoatzto lelo chochma, v'sushio lo rov hodoto. Ma yoatzto, what have you counseled? What counsel have you given? Lelo chochma, without true wisdom. V'sushio lo rov hodoto. Sushio, some strong and mighty teaching from God have you made known in its abundance? The word tushia, as we have seen in our studies in the book of Proverbs, can only be translated into English with a meaning similar to that of chokhmah, wisdom. And Job is casting scorn upon Bildad now. In the words of Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, in his commentary on Job, he says, Ma ozarta lelo koach, what if you help to the one with no strength? He's saying that his words are of no help and no avail to Job, nor to anybody else who is coming to search out the answer of this matter, why the righteous suffer. And his words have no ability to penetrate, Bildad's words have no ability to penetrate to this secret. Because even somebody who says that the justice meted out to men is arbitrary, if he says that, it's not because he's denying God. He's, on the contrary, arguing this because of the great exaltedness of God and the great the smallness and mereness of man, that God therefore does not pay attention to man. That is, in other words, Bildad's words could be construed to work in favor of the ones who say that indeed there is no just providence in this world. So verse 4, Es mi higarato milin, v'nishmas mi yotz'o mimeko. In a simple sense, this verse is construed by our commentators as follows: Es mi higarato milin, with whom or through whom have you told and set forth words in your address? V'nishmas mi yotzo mimeko, the soul of whom has come forth from you. Metzudat interprets this as a scornful answer by Job to Bildad. That is to say, who could be found that does not know exactly what you've said already? You've not said anything new. And the breath of the Spirit of whom has come forth from you. That is to say, who did you hear these things from? And in the interpretation of Metzudat says, B'derech la'ag oma, he's speaking in a way of scorn. Ramban here on this verse has a very interesting a different explanation of the meaning of the words when he says that the soul of whom has come forth from you. Which of the human beings whose soul and spirit are desolate over this conundrum of the suffering of the righteous have you restored their soul and given them life through your words? Through giving them a pathway with which they can follow and come to faith and deeper wisdom on this subject. For when a person is desolate through not having the answer to some conundrum, then it's as if he has no life and no soul, as when Daniel was faced by the angel Gabriel and he lost all of his powers, he couldn't stand up. Whereas when somebody gives a person good news that restores the soul of the person, then Job, according to Ramban, is asking, well, who are your words going to help? In a way, the words of Bildad are a very standard response of a fundamentalist, self-professed believer who is not willing to brook any questions against God. God is so great, so powerful, so fearful, there's nothing for you to say. And we see a lot of this in the contemporary, it can't even be called discourse, in the public domain today between different religious promoters of different religions, this blanket sort of very, very weak response to people. And this is what Job is saying to Bildad. You've not, through your fundamentalist affirmations, you've not really helped anybody to find a way out of their crises of faith. So now, if Bildad had been speaking about the great power of God, Job says, well, I can do better than that. And this is what he now launches into in verse 5. Horefoim yechololu mitachas mayim v'shochneihem. Horefoim, these are the dead. After their death, the souls of the dead are going down into hell. Horefoim yechololu. They are being... Yechololu is from the root of halal, which is a space. They are being bored through, all turned into holes, or they're rolling down mitachas mayim, underneath the waters, v'shochneihem, and their dwellers. So on this verse, the Metzudat David explains in his commentary on verse 5, Job is saying, if you have come to speak about the exaltedness of God, then more than what you have said, I know, I shall tell you, me too, I shall now tell you. And it says, look, Gehinnom, which is the expression for what people call hell, Gehinnom, the place of the dead, which has chalalim rabim, many dead people. The Hebrew word halal, which is contained also in this expression yechololu. The word halal is a lifeless being, a lifeless body. There are many in hell, and there are the 7 levels of hell, which is underneath the deepest waters, and those who dwell in them. For there is one of the entrances into hell is through the sea. And Job continues speaking about how the greatness of God and the omnipotence of God is to be seen everywhere. And he says this even down there in hell, verse 6, Orom Sheol negdo ve'ein kesus la'avadon. Orom Sheol, naked is Sheol, the nether world of the grave, negdo, before God. God is present and visible and witnesses. In other words, Job indeed understands the omnipotence and the omniscience of God. Sheol, hell, is naked before him. Ve'ein kesus la'avadon. There is no cover, no clothing over Avadon, another word for hell. Sheol and Avadon are 2 of the words of these 7 levels of hell to which the Metzudat David has just referred. Avadon from the Hebrew root avad, meaning lost. And now continuing to evoke the unfathomable mysteries of God, Job continues in verse 7, Noteh Tzofon al tohu, tole eretz al belimo. Noteh tzofon al tohu. He extends or pitches, like you pitch a tent, he plants the tzafon, the north, which is the main location on the globe of the inhabited areas. Most of them are in the north. So he plants the north, al tohu, on complete emptiness and desolation. Tohu is a Hebrew word, one of the earliest words in Genesis, that before God created light, the earth was filled with devastation and emptiness. Tohu means nothingness. So the world is hanging on nothingness. Toile eretz al belimo. He hangs the earth on belimo. Belimo is interpreted as being made up of two words, beli, without, mo, what. The earth is hung on nothingness. The earth is suspended in the middle, spinning around its axis, and what is holding it up? We can perceive nothing that appears to be holding the earth in its place. Another interpretation of the word belimo would be from balum, which is a word meaning to hold something back, like holding back a donkey with its reins. And belimo would be something that is withheld. One could interpret Kabbalistically that the physical material world exists on something that is the result of the withholding of God's infinite light. And now in verse 8, the very beautiful evocation of the way God runs the water economy through holding the waters in clouds, which also are suspended in the air, go flying through the air, apparently held up by nothing. Verse 8, Tzorer mayim bi'ovov, v'lo nivka onon tachtom. Tzorer mayim, he wraps up the waters like you wrap up money in a purse. He wraps up the waters bi'ovov, in his thick clouds. V'lo nivka onon tachtom. The anan, another word for a cloud, a pillar of smoke, is the amud ha'anan. The anan, the vapors, lo nifka, they're not broken through by the waters that are being carried in the cloud. Lo nifka onon tachtam, the anan is not, the cloud is not split asunder underneath those waters. What a miracle of everything standing on nothing visible whatever. Me'achez pnei chisei parshiz olav anono. Me'achez, from the Hebrew root achaz, held. Me'achez, he makes held the face of the kisei. This is the throne. The Hebrew word kisei, the verb here spelled with an aleph, is actually the root of something that covers over. And God's throne, which is the heavens, as in the phrase from Isaiah, the heavens are my throne, are actually a cover for the invisible realm that actually controls the visible heaven. So the face of the heaven he has set around with boundaries so that the one upon the throne cannot be seen. Parshes olav anonoi. Parshes is the Hebrew word that is more familiar to us in the form of peresh sin, paras. He spreads out upon it, upon the throne, anono, his cloud. In other words, here alluding to the concealment of the higher partsufim that govern the lower partsufim, the lower visages, and all of this is hidden away. Continuing now with verse 10, Chok hog al pnei moyim ad tachlis or im choshech. Chok, a statute. The word chog, as in the seasons of the year, the festivals of the year, which are in a cycle, the word chog actually would be translated as a compass, as an encompassing circle. He has, by way of a statute, imposed a circular boundary, al pnei moim, on the face of the waters, namely the sea. Ad tachlis or im choshech, until the very end of light with darkness, the ultimate boundaries where light and darkness are already mixed together. all these tremendously evocative phrases here of Job alluding to the Kabbalistic mysteries of creation. Verse 11, Amudei shomayim yirofofu v'yismehu miga'arosoi. Literally, Amudei shomayim, the pillars of the heavens, yirofofu, they became soft. V'yismehu miga'arosoi, but they were astounded at his rebuke. Rashi here on this verse mentions something which he mentions also in his commentary on Genesis chapter 1, where he says that when God created the heavens, before he caused them to solidify, they were soft and weak until he rebuked them, and then they stood in dryness and strength. Well, I would humbly suggest that perhaps this midrash about how the heavens were, as Rashi says on Genesis chapter 1, lachim, they were moist and damp until God rebuked them and then they dried out. It's alluding to the spread of the light of creation into the empty void created by the first tzimtzum. And as the light spread, it was still carrying its infinite qualities, was spreading like water until God rebuked them. In other words, he imposed a further tzimtzum, a further contraction, causing them then to solidify. So this could be taken as a kind of a mashal, a parable for the extension of the light of the sfirot, until with successive contractions of the light, these become the amudei shomayim, the seven sfirot, which are the columns, the pillars of the heavens. At first they were all spreading in their infinite dimension, infinite aspect, but through God's rebuke of his tzimtzum, they then attained, as it were, a solid and apprehensible form in their lower manifestations. Continuing now with verse 12, Bechocho roga ayom, uvesevunoso mochatz rohav. Bechocho roga ayom. Through his strength, roga is a verb that is interpreted as making furrows, just like seen from afar. The sea has all these furrows of the waves and the ripples on the surface of the sea. The sea thereby is split into all of these furrows, but through God's power that he caused the sea to be furrowed. With his understanding, mochatz rohav, he struck down Rohav, the arrogant, the haughty angel of Egypt. So here in this verse is an allusion to the splitting of the Red Sea. Bechocho roga ayom, through the strength of God, he split the sea. Koach is from the side of chokhmah. The word chokhmah, which is a right side attribute, contains the word koach. It was through the power of God's wisdom that he caused the splitting of the sea. Over Sivinuso, it was through his tivuna, which is on the left-hand side of Bina, understanding, which is the source of the dinim, the severe judgments. It was through that attribute that he struck down Rahav, the arrogant side of evil, the Sitra Achra, the prince of the Sitra Achra, the angel of death. So now, verse 13, Berucho shomayim shifro. Through his spirit or his wind, the heavens did he shifro, did he beautify and clarify. Chololo yodo nochosh boriach. Cholelo yodo, the root here is, as in Psalm 29, Yecholel ayalot, he causes the female deer to give birth. So Yodo, his hand, gave birth to the Nochosh Boriach. The Nochosh Boriach, a Boriach in Hebrew is a bar or a bolt of a lock. And the exact connotation of the Nochosh Boriach is much discussed by the commentators. In its simple meaning, it could be interpreted as the mighty sea creatures like the whale or the Leviathan, which is also a concept we shall be discussing later on in the series when we get to Job's discourses, God's discourses about the Leviathan. But another level of interpretation of this Nochosh, this serpent that is Boriach, this great extended bolt keeping all the heavens together, is that this is referring to one of the stars or constellation, perhaps the star of Dracon, the dragon, which is near the position of the North Pole star, and which appears to be holding the whole of the celestial wheels in position, and it was God whose hand made this. Another interpretation is that the Nochosh Boriach is referring to the Milky Way, which is the axis upon which the whole galaxy turns. The entire subject, for those who wish to pursue it, is available in Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's edition of the Sefer Yetzirah with translation and commentary. In his commentary on chapter 6 of Sefer Yetzirah, pages 231 of the original printing of this book by Samuel Weiser, and he has quite a few pages of very scholarly discussion about the different interpretations of this phrase here, Nochosh Boriach. So this now, Job sums up his first response to Bildad's evocation of the greatness of God by saying, well, we can go much further. Hein eile ketsois derochov. Indeed, these are these are just the ends of his ways. These are just the edges, the very beginnings of his ways. Uma shemetz dovo nishma bo. What mere shemetz, what mere trace or smear of anything could be heard in him in view of the great, the tremendous greatness of God? What faint echo of a hint could anybody elicit from his works? V'ra'am gevurisov, the thunder of his mighty works. Mi yisbonen, who can contemplate and begin to understand? So Job is saying here, as summed up by the commentary of Metzudat David, bringing now a summary of what Job is telling us here. The Metzudat says as follows on his commentary on Job chapter 26, verse 14. He says, even the might that is heard by everybody, like the sound of the thunder, who can possibly contemplate and investigate to understand the hidden wonders that are contained in them? And even though that which is done in the heavens above and in the earth down below, that no man knows about them, that is to say, I have let you hear more than you made me hear when you spoke about it, and I've not yet begun to attain a great a share of understanding in the mighty works of God. And Job says that even though he has said more than Bildad had said about the greatness of God, Metzudat says that Job does not see fit to respond any more to Bildad because of the great scorn, the great contempt with which he holds it, as if to say, look according to the greatness of God and the absolute lowliness of man, then Bildad had suggested that even a small rebellion would be considered to be a great rebellion against God, given man's lowliness and God's greatness. And Metzudat concludes by saying this simply sharpens the question of Job, that if this is so, that even a small deviation is a great rebellion, how much more so should the deviations of the wicked be seen as a great rebellion, and the wicked should suffer, and they don't. And with that, we conclude this part of the discourse, and we will continue with chapter 27, the continuation of Job's discourse, in our next section. So with that, my friends, we will take a brief interval before returning to our study of the Mishnah presently.
Mach
Shalom again, my dear friends. Shalom. Let's get back to our studies now, and turning now to the Holy Mishnah, to the concluding Mishnah of chapter 11. Let's just set up to be able to record this class as well in audio. There we go. Shalom. Today, the 7th day of the month of Iyar of the year 5777, corresponding to the 3rd of May of the year 2017. And we continue now with our study in Tractate Shabbat, Masechet Shabbat, chapter 11, with the concluding Mishnah of chapter 11 of Shabbat, which now addresses issues of the intentionality of an act in relation to the labor of Shabbat that we have been focusing on for most of the time since the very beginning of the tractate. And now this is our the conclusion of the discussions of the Mishnah about the prohibited labor of Hotza'ah on the Shabbat. There are a couple of places later on in the tractate where issues involving questions of carrying out into the public domain on Shabbat are relevant, but the main discussion is now wound up in this concluding Mishnah of chapter 11. And let us follow through the words of the Mishnah. Hazoirik v'niskar le'acha sheyotzeso miyodo. Somebody throws an object in the public domain which is going to go further than the permitted 4 cubits, about 2 meters distance. V'niskar, he remembered that it's Shabbos and he's not allowed to do this on the Shabbat in the public domain. Niskar li'acha sheyotzeso miyodo, after the object already left his hand, but it has not yet landed. Keloto acher, if somebody else caught the object while it was in motion, before it was able to land. Keloto kelev, if it was an object that the dog was able to open its mouth and catch in its mouth. Oisha nisrefo, if before the object was able to land, it got caught in a fire and burned up, so there was nothing left of it to land. In all these cases, says the Mishnah Potter, the person is exempt from a sin offering. A sin offering is brought if a person violates one of the prohibitions of the Shabbat unintentionally. Unintentionally means that they were not aware that it was Shabbat, or that the action in question was forbidden on the Shabbat from the beginning of the performance of the action until the end. Our Mishnah is telling us that if they had the if the person had the intention to throw the object further than 4 cubits, not realizing it was the Shabbat. If the entire act was completed as they had intended, they threw the object, it traveled 4 cubits, and only afterwards did they discover that it was they remembered today as Shabbat, or they remembered that throwing an object in the public domain is forbidden on the Shabbat, then they would be liable to a sin offering. But if a person performs a violation of the Shabbat knowingly, no matter whether they knew it from the outset of the action, or whether they only became aware of it after the action had started to be performed, and now they cannot stop it, as in this case where the object has already left the person's hand. If the object is still in motion through the air, and the person all of a sudden remembers that it is the Shabbat, after it's left their hand, and in the middle suddenly it comes into their mind, it is the Shabbat, then the entire act of the object moving through the 4 cubits is not with a complete concealment of the Shabbat from the person. And therefore, even though the throwing has finished, it's left his hand, the fact that the object is still in motion, and during its motion he remembers it's Shabbat, that turns his action into, from that point on, as a flagrant action. And there is no sin offering for a flagrant action, a flagrant violation of the Shabbat, even though, as in this case, it didn't start intentionally, but he then became aware it's the Shabbat. A flagrant violation cannot be atoned for with just a sacrifice. It has to be atoned for by a deeper kind of repentance for having allowed oneself to come to such a violation of the Shabbat. So to continue with our Mishnah, Zorak lasois chaburo, if a person threw the object with the intention of injuring someone, bein be'adam, whether he wants to injure a person, bein bevehemo, or if he's trying to injure an animal, he throws a stone at an animal as a sign of anger or discipline, or for some reason, and after the object has left his hand, he suddenly remembers, v'nizkar ad shelo na'aso chaburo, he remembers all the while before the actual wound that he intended to cause has occurred, Potter, likewise in this case, the person is exempt from bringing a sin offering, because the moment that he remembered that it is the Shabbat, the act from that point on becomes a flagrant act, and therefore he's not able to bring a sin offering to atone it. He would have to enter into a deeper kind of repentance. Well, now, the Bartanura, in his commentary, explains what our Mishnah is actually saying. The Mishnah starts, Azorik b'Shabbos b'shoigig, a person throws the object on Shabbos unwittingly. V'nizkar shehu Shabbos le'achar sheyotzos ho'even mitachas yodoi. He remembered that today is Shabbat after the object, the stone, as came out from in his hand. Koidem shetanuach, before it comes to rest. Afilo loy kaloto acher, even if it was not intercepted by somebody else, nobody caught it. Elo shenocho kedarko, but the object eventually came to land in the normal way. Potter, he is liable, he is exempt from a sin offering. The achi tenan lekamon, because we will learn in the continuation of this mitzvah, of this Mishnah further down, ad shetehei tchiloson v'soifon bishgogo. It's only if both the beginning of the act and the end of it is all in a state of shgogo, of unawareness. V'hai, but in this case, this person that after the object left his hand, he remembered it before the object landed. He started off in a state of shkaga, unwittingness. Soifo mezid, the end, he was aware of the prohibition. Hoil v'nizkar, because he remembered it's the Shabbat. Hoil v'nizkar shu Shabbos, remembers the Shabbat. Koidem shedonach, he remembered this before the object came to rest. Umasnisin hocho meforsha. Our Mishnah would be interpreted as follows. Hazoyrek v'nizkar la'achar sheyotzo mitachas yodoi. Somebody who throws the object and he remembered its Shabbos after it left his hand. Inami, equally, loy nizkar, even if he did not remember, elo shekloto acher, but the object was intercepted, he will also be potter. Why will he be exempt from a sacrifice if somebody else, the person or the dog, intercepted the item and caught it? Because we have a rule, two people who do one and the same action are exempt. Now if the object landed, if the object landed without being intercepted, chayav chatos, the person would be liable to a sin offering when, in what case are those words said that he would be liable for a sin offering? If he went back and forgot, if when the object left his hand, he forgot its Shabbos. While it's in motion, all of a sudden he remembers. Then again, while it's still flying through the air, he forgot. In that case, he would still be liable to a sin offering because the beginning and the end of the action was in a state of unawareness. But if he did not go back to remembering, he just plain... If he, after the object left his hand, he realized it's Shabbos, he did not then go on to forget once again that it's Shabbos, Pater, he is exempt from a sacrifice because of the rule enunciated in a moment in the continuation of the Mishnah, Kol Chayovi, everybody who violated the Shabbos, it has to be the beginning and the end in a state of unawareness. So let us, for further understanding, go to the end of our Mishnah. Zeh haklol. This is the rule. Kol chayovei chatus, all those who are liable for a sin offering for the violation of the Shabbat, einon chayovin ad shetei tchiloson v'soifon shkogo. They will not be liable to the sacrifice until the following conditions are fulfilled, that the beginning of the action and the end of the action was all in a state of shgaga, unwitting. But if not, as follows: Techiloson shigogo v'soifon zodon. If their beginning was in a state of unawareness, he forgot its Shabbos. V'soifon zodon, but in the end, he was, as it were, flagrant violator because he now realized it's Shabbos, even though the object is still in motion, flying through the air. If the end is in a state of awareness, or tchilos on zodoin b'soifon shkogo, if the action started off being flagrant, he knew it's Shabbos, but all of a sudden, while the object is flying through the air, he just lost that awareness. Soifon shkogo, the end of the action was in a state of unawareness. Peturin, the person is exempt, ad shetehei tchiloson v'soifon shkogo, until the beginning and the end of the action will be in a state of unawareness. With that, we conclude Mishnah Vov of Perek Yud Aleph, the 6th Mishnah of the 11th chapter of Shabbat, and with that we conclude the Mishnah speaking about the melacha of hotza'ah and tiltul, of carrying out and carrying across through the public domain on the Shabbat. And the following chapter, chapter 12, will enter into the other labors that are forbidden on the Shabbat. So with that, my dear friends, we will conclude our Mishnah study for today and our studies for today. And with the help of God, we shall tomorrow enter with full strength into chapter 12 of Tractate Shabbat, going off in a new direction, beginning to speak about the other labors forbidden on the Shabbat and their parameters. So that, my dear friends, I would like to wish you Hemshech Yom Tov, continuation of having a good day today, the 22nd day of the Omer count, the 7th day of the month of Iyar. And let me bid you shalom from Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, peace and blessing from the holy city of Jerusalem.
Oy ki